Good afternoon, people of the Lot Radio. This is Russell Ellington Langston Butler here with another special episode of Deep Exposure, this time with my dear friend, Mzzz Adele. We're going to start things off with a composition by the Pan-African People's Orchestra entitled Little A's Chant. This just came out. I would recommend going to their Bandcamp and getting a copy.
Ever see a bird go flying by, then wonder why? Ever see a tree that shakes its leaves to show it's free? Little A knows, you hear her chant. Little A goes to where it's at. Life can be a dream anew. Little A knows, in spite of it, little A shows some part of it. Love is waiting here for, love is waiting here. She chants for you. Ever notice how a simple song can make you weep when you hear a tune? How close you feel to one who's gone. Little A knows, you hear her chant. Little A grows, a magic lamp. She can make your dream come true. Little A knows, a world of light shining throughout the lonely night. Love is waiting now for, love is waiting now. She chants for you. God is everything and love is all. They must be one. Flowers in the spring
Check, 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 check. 1 2 1 2 1 2 check. That was the Pan African People's Orchestra with Horace Tapscott. Rest in peace. They just played recently in New York for the very first time at National Sawdust, which is where I got this record. Sublime performance. Kia was on sax. Just incredible, like 10-piece band. And it was recorded. And Black Science Fiction will be putting out that recording, which I'm very much looking forward to. And now to the present moment with my guest, Chris, aka Mzzz Adele, whom you may have seen out and about, whether playing at Mood Ring or at Nowadays or even behind the bar certain places as well. And we're going to get into a lot of that today. Here on Deep Exposure, we utilize Pauline Oliveros' deep listening as a framework to talk about nightlife culture, and Chris is a very important part of that. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So, Chris, I'd like to really hear from you about kind of what is your earliest memory of music?
It's pretty deep. My family's from the Caribbean, so reggae was played in the house a lot. Dub was played in the house a lot. That UK version of reggae that you hear out was played a lot. My grandfather was a collector, like tons of vinyl. He wouldn't even let me touch half of it. He would play it, and I just couldn't touch it.
Old school ones.
Yeah, and I was like, damn, granddad. I mean, all right. And then my grandmother, same. My mother collected CDs, and like I have the digital collection. So it's kind of funny how it goes down like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of dub and reggae. And then living with my mother when I was a kid, she would play like a lot of Sade, a lot of jazz, a lot of Kenny G. We would listen to like the Quiet Storm, that like nationally like Hot 105. Every like city has one in the United States where they play like soul and like stuff from the 60s and 70s. So a lot of stuff like that.
Nice. And in this environment, like, do you remember listening on headphones mostly? Was it like a home stereo, hi-fi kind of thing? And what was the media that you were listening to?
I mean, so back in the day, CD players. My grandfather has like these Tannoy speakers that same thing. He won't let me touch, and I'm just like, all right. And my mom had like a home setup as well, kind of like the old school speakers with like the wired connection, like definitely not up to date, but sounds amazing. So yeah, normally in the house, and then in Miami we would go to a lot of like kind of like sound clashes for like reggae. So it was just trucks with speakers on it. So that was like another memory as well.
Yeah, it's kind of very much like a not just African diasporic thing, but like Caribbean diasporic thing. Like Bermuda absolutely had its own versions of that. Like I definitely wasn't cool enough or like in the know enough to be going to these things when I was a youth. Like my parents were squares, you know. So it's not that there wasn't music. It's just the social environment in which I experienced was very different. It was more like almost like more on some like higher society type of stuff, like going to see like a Philharmonic orchestra or going to a pantomime or it's not that we didn't listen to reggae or like go see bands or other things like that, you know, but there was definitely this like for sure like class association with like what the sound clash was and what other stuff was, you know, and you could kind of draw that line like pretty clearly, at least when I was growing up, you know. And so you recently had an experience with some of your family. You just took a trip to London and you reconnected with your grandfather. So is any of the music that we're going to be listening to related to that time or that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. My family's part of that Windrush generation, and a lot of the music that they play was a lot of music that was like popping in the streets at that time. A lot of reggae, a lot of calypso, a lot of soul. What I'm gonna play is this stuff that he played on the house, which was like there was no limits. Like I can give my grandfather like a house record and he'll enjoy it. And he's really like old school, so he just enjoys music. Period. So yeah, I'm gonna play some stuff that was inspired. I got some Miles Davis. I got some Dorothy Ashby coming up. I have some good sounds coming up.
Cool. What is this first tune that you're going to play for us?
It's Alton Ellis. Breaking Up Is Hard to Do. My grandmother used to play this when I was younger as well. And the bass on this track is fire, but his voice is so sweet.
You can't hear? Can't hear anything?
Oh no. I hope they heard us though.
Yeah, same. Anyways, we're gonna play this next track.
My darling, everybody knows.
For my love is so strong. My love is so strong. My love is so strong. So listen to me while I say to you, breaking up is hard to do, baby. Breaking up is hard to do. Everybody is hard.
Breaking up is hard to do, Alton Ellis. Do you have any other thoughts about that song, Chris?
It's a valid fact. Breaking up is very hard to do. It keeps a lot of relationships in New York and like people just paying rent, living together for a long time. But also it's real, and that's the thing about reggae music. It's always real. Like it's always like real world stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty grounded. I think pretty grounded in working class experience and the black experience. There's always this kind of like yearning, I think, that's inherent to it. You know, that is one of the very human things about this kind of music.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I'd agree.
and so tell me more about how this relates to your recent experience and kind of coming to more knowledge around the Windrush generation in London.
So as a kid, I used to go there a lot, and I don't know, my family was just like bouncing around with the citizenship, you know, like got British passports, some have U.S. passports, and I think this is what like the far right kind of pays attention to. Like you're getting into the country and you're here and you're there and you're working and like you're working and you're working and you're working and like you're making money, you're owning your house, and like it was kind of grounding for me being able to have a home in London, have a home in New York, and have a home in Miami, and go down to the Caribbean and have like a home too. So I kind of like feel at home anywhere I am in a sense. But specifically with the UK and that generation, it's just what I grew up around. Like there were other people there too, like South Asians, East Asians, like people of African descent, like a lot of Somalians. And my grandmother used to foster children, so we had like some people from like Iraq that were kids, and like they actually put me on to the Fugees. It's kind of insane. Like a South Asian kid put me on to the Fugees.
Wow.
And my grandmother was like, yeah, put it on the system, and like blasted it, and the bass in that what's that song? Foo La La La. The bass in that track when it first starts is like
Fujila. Yeah.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, a couple guests, Lonnie and Colton in here too, just kicking it, you know.
Yeah, that was really
That was really yeah, so a very formative kind of experience. So from the very beginning, you had this like social experience of music. It sounds like it wasn't so. Did you ever have an experience of music where it was like a bit more isolated from the environment?
I mean, just like the experience we all have, like, you know, like here in New York City, when you step outside your house, or even when you're in your bed and you hear like some Dominican music bumping out of like a Honda Civic and it's like booming, like stuff like that, being out on the street and just hearing different kind of music being played. I think back then it was like the 90s, so there was like some UKG. What was that group? That one that had that 21 Seconds. Do you know that song?
Wait, are you talking about like Craig David?
No,
not like Two Step, like a little earlier than that.
Yeah, like 21 Seconds. But it was like kind of like a street anthem.
Okay, word.
I forgot their name though. I literally thought about it the other day. But yeah, mainly in the house, but also whatever you hear in the street, whatever you hear on cars passing by, whatever you hear when you go to like a friend's house or like a block party or like anything like that, you know.
What are you listening to? Not to, but what are you listening for? Like when you're by yourself.
I mean, to be honest, when I'm by myself, I kind of prefer silence. Being in these industries and like hearing music all the time, it's beautiful and it's just like constantly being played in your head. But sometimes at home, I like to decompress. But when I'm at the crib, I'm listening to some real dubby tracks, some drum and bass tracks, also some jazz. I'm just like testing out the range of these tracks on my speakers, which are just like some Yamaha HS somethings, you know. But I'm listening for feeling, to be honest with you. Music gives like intense feeling, and a lot of people that go out, sometimes I think some people are numb. They don't really pay attention to the feeling. It's like, give me another drink, give me another this, give me another that. Like, I think people like me and you, we're there on the dance floor, could be sober, could be not, but like the feeling that we're getting from like the highs, the lows, the bass, the drops, like everything, that's actually what I'm listening for and like trying to feel.
Yeah, I hear that, especially in as it relates to these kinds of social environments that you were in earlier on. Like it's a way like through that connection that you get from other people, you get a kind of broader emotional range, right? Like somebody sharing something like Fuji La with you is like they had some kind of reaction to that they can't even necessarily articulate beyond like, this is worth sharing with somebody that I think is cool, you know, or somebody that I'm sharing this, like we're in the same class. It's like, what are you listening to? Like, oh, like check this out or whatever. And even though it's maybe not seen as that significant of an experience at that time, it's still like extremely formative. Just that simple act of like, yo, like this moved me in some kind of a way, you know.
And
it's automatically a means of you're already, and even when you're by yourself, there is this like inclusion of others in your experience. That's really cool.
Yeah, this moved me, and now I want it to move you too, and maybe it'll help you. Sharing music is like really important.
Yeah. To loop back around to some music, this is another tune that was just recently reissued that I'd like to play. It's Abashanti. It's called Break Down the Walls. It's on this Wackies label that I was just talking to my two friends over here about. New York City-based label. I played a bunch of their tunes on previous shows. Very particular kind of sonic palette. But also they have very, like, their lyrics are super socialist. And one of the things that I'd like to do in my artistic practice, and one of the things that we talk about is these kind of arbitrary boundaries that are placed between music and sound, or discrete environments of music, like via genre and so forth, when really it's kind of, these things are born out of specific cultural environments. And even though we can't experience them in real time, you know, because this is a tune from like the late 70s, early 80s, it still can have this this resonance in the current time that we're in. There's still things that we can learn from it. So this is Break Down the Walls by Abashanti.
Just won't let me go. You just won't let me go. You just won't let me go. Just won't let me go. I'm gonna break down the wall. Break it down, down. Break down the wall. Break it down, down. Break down the wall. Break it down, down. Break down the wall. We're gonna break down Babylon walls. All you're bound to fall. We're gonna break down Babylon walls. All you're bound to fall. Got to bridge the gap. Got to lose the track. You know we've got to bridge the gap. Got to lose the track. In this world of ignorance and folly, years of government, them a dilly-dally. down the walls.
Abashanti, Break Down the Walls. Hopefully that's a bit better on the volume for y'all. They've got a new mixer over here at the lot. It is a very pristine DJM A9. It's pretty cute. Too bad we're not going to be doing some hot mixing on this thing. But anyhow, so I'd like to keep it. It's been really interesting keeping it in this kind of ancestral space with talking about your grandfather, talking about your mom, their connection with the music. Do you engage with them about the current kind of roles that you've had in the more kind of industrial perspective? Like, you're a worker in many different kinds of forms in the nightlife space. Do you engage with them at all about that?
I do, and I'll be honest, they're not super fond of it because nightlife is what it is. It's kind of dangerous, low key.
Is it like stigma that they feel around it, or?
I mean, a little bit. It's like alcohol being served. It's people on other substances. It's like loud music. It's like people who are not their 9 to 5 selves and not the 6 to 10 selves. They're like 10 to 5 a.m. selves. So
yeah, the hours that those folks aren't even awake.
Yeah. But yeah, we talk about it, and to be honest, when they steer it to that level, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's the music though. Like, it's not about this. It's not about some person giving me attitude behind the bar. It's like just the music. Like, it kind of helps me coast through a shift. For anyone that doesn't know, I bartended for a long time in hospitality and then nightlife, and then I managed a nightclub
in Miami as well as New York.
Miami was just like bartending, like events. I used to work for Hennessy, and then after that, I moved to New York and hopped straight into nightlife because it just seemed more of the direction. Like, I wanted to be myself, like wear the clothes I wanted to, grow my hair.
Yeah.
In Florida, like I think for a lot of jobs you couldn't have locks. Like it was like the job was allowed to discriminate on like whether they thought your hair was neat or not.
Yeah, the Bermuda, at least for me growing up, like it's been many years since I've worked there, but that stigma is also there.
Yeah.
It kind of comes with conservatism. If there's a culture of assimilation, which there is like all across the West, then yeah, like things around here, like the schools that I grew up going to, for example, you couldn't, if you were a boy, you couldn't have hair that touched your shoulders. So if your hair grew too long, they would send you home and make you cut it before you could come back to school.
Yeah, very weird. Also, when you experience other societies and people have their hair down to their mid back and their boys are like non-gender or anything, it's kind of like, why am I restricted?
I only say boys in this kind of context because
Yeah.
like I can't act like I grew up in an environment that was remotely trans inclusive.
No, not at all, not at all. FYI, y'all, the Caribbean is super.
Context is everything
It
here,
used to
know?
be. I don't know if it changed, but like,
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the closet is that people still exist, even if they're in it.
yeah,
You know, so it's that people are still there. You know, they're just like not as visible in the way that we're currently experiencing within certain parts of the West, to the point where it's being like over policed.
yeah.
Cool. What other music do you have to share with us, Chris, today?
I have some jazz right now. I was gonna play a song from Alice Coltrane. There's someone else on the track.
Big fans of Alice Coltrane. We are over here at Deep Exposure.
I see that. I definitely get that vibe. But it was a song from like some random album, and like again, like going back to family, my grandfather's like, have you ever heard of blah blah blah? And he names a track, and I'm like, no, I haven't, obviously.
I mean, the old folks know the songs too. You know,
Yeah.
there is. I mean, I do too, to an extent, and to an extent you do because of the vocation that we're in with DJing and stuff. But like, I mean, many people these days in our generation and younger, they don't know this. They don't know the song.
This
They-
sounds hard.
you know?
Buy, download,
Yeah,
whatever
exactly,
the case may be.
Exactly. There are other associations than
Yeah.
like the title of the song. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like going back to listening. This is like the thing. Like you're at your house, you're by yourself. There's no one for you to entertain. There's no one entertaining you. It's just you and the music. Like y'all are one in
Yeah.
a sense. So like
Yeah. No stakes.
he names this track, and I'm like, nah, I haven't. And like I've listened to like a lot of Alice Coltrane, and the song he played, I was kind of like, what? Like this sounds dubby, and also like the thing with music is it's kind of timeless. So it sounds of the past, but it also sounds like it could have been recorded today. It sounds like it could have been recorded tomorrow. It's just on that like
I mean, it points
level.
like really good music points out the arbitrary nature of having a perspective around linear time. Ultimately, so something that can feel like it's from the past. I mean, also these are aesthetic associations that we're making. Like things look and feel like the past or look and feel like the future based off of like how we're viewing them and how we viewed other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is. I mean, it's kind of overwrought at this point. It's kind of a cliche, but like, yeah, there are things that are timeless. But I think that I would currently describe them as more like non-linear. Like they almost exist. Like Sun Ra talks about things existing like outside of time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's almost like that more so. I think sometimes.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it.
Exactly. And like, but still, because someone can make a song today and it could be like in the same style of something from the 60s or 70s where you're almost questioning it until you see like a music video and
Yeah.
you see like the fashion. I forgot who it was, but they have like a really dope song, and the video is like very retro, but in the Caribbean, but like very retro. It's almost to the point where like you question like what you're seeing in a sense, and I like that. I like hearing that, and I like seeing that. I like playing that as well. We're in like the dance music scene, but a lot of times I'll throw in like a mixed bag and just see how the crowd reacts at times. Just something that you want to like throw a twist on, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and really, I mean, I feel like what you're speaking to there as well is having some sense of presence around things, and that because one of my one of the overarching, I wouldn't say goals, but like I guess motivations around this show is is that music is just this kind of extremely background experience for many people, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to foreground it as like an equivalent experience that is as good as it being loud or getting drunk or being around a bunch of really hot people who are really cool or whatever. You know, like I think that there's just something that's fundamentally, inherently good about this thing.
Yeah.
On its own, like, and not as like the background to you cooking or the background to your commute or something like that. Like, and so sometimes, like, you know, in your role as a DJ, it can be interesting to play with that tension as well. It might not be, you know, you might talk about it in a different way, but that's kind of what it feels like to me, you know, is that it makes people just kind of like straighten their backs up and be like, huh? And they just ask a question for a second and they're like, wait, I actually really like this. Like, let's go for it. You know?
Especially on like a hi-fi sound system that you do not have and cannot afford at your house.
Remotely.
Yeah, exactly.
Remotely.
You're like, let me test this out.
So shall we listen to this Alice Coltrane?
Absolutely.
Cool. And is this a Love Supreme?
It is.
So a John Coltrane composition then.
Love. Love is a sacred word. Love is the name of God. The entire universe is created with love, by love, and in love. Love is the beginning, love is the continuation, and love is the end. Love for love's sake is divine. It is constructive. It is beautiful. It brings peace. It brings harmony. It brings joy to the lover and to the loved. But if love is based on selfishness, egoism, the very same love brings destruction. Peace and harmony is based on love. When used properly by a selfless mind for the benefit of the humanity. Love knows no business. Love knows no bargain. Love never expects anything in return. Love knows only giving, giving and giving, without even waiting for a thank you. Such a love is the supreme one.
Once again, what track was that?
A Love Supreme by Alice Coltrane, and like I said, there's someone else on the track who's like on the record. Their name's on the record, but I don't have it when I download the track. I'm sorry. I will find that for you in the comments at some point.
I mean, no stress. You know, Google is free. And so is Discogs. Tell me more about this track, like what it kind of means for you.
I mean, the words in the beginning, as he's describing love, and you hear Alice Coltrane like playing the harp, and it's like kind of like the intro, and you hear that bass as well. It's like he's telling you love should be free. Love doesn't have like a cost. Like it's like this isn't like the exact quote, but it's like saying like love is almost limitless, and the words are very powerful, and it's kind of what drew me to the track itself. Besides besides the harp and all the sounds in the background, it's actually what he's saying, which like again, like I was saying off while the track was playing, the Magdalene Diaries talks about love in a sense where if I love you,
This
you
is
don't have to love
Mary
me back.
Magdalene, the biblical figure.
Yeah.
We were talking about off mic.
Who was left out of the Bible because they were a woman. But yeah, it was just saying like love is limitless, and if I love you, you don't have to love me back. You know what I mean? Like there's no like limit on it. It's not conditional in that sense. And the words are just powerful. So when I hear that, it just reminds me of to stay within my boundaries as well, and also like mind other people's boundaries. Pretty much.
Cool. I think that's fairly prescient. I mean, it's throughout your experience of listening as well. It coming from these people in your family that, to an extent, like your grandfather, who you're talking about a little bit off mic, you know, about how he would, you know, just kind of play records for his friends, and how that was just good in and of itself. Just that act, like he didn't have to like take it to a club or take it to a sound system or anything like that. It was just like, I'm just happy to just share in this with like my friends and loved ones. Like that itself, like the kind of sharing process of music is kind of an act of love within that context.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, a background on that is I made the decision to DJ like in this man's house after I left some festival in South France, the worldwide festival. And I was just sitting on the couch watching him play, and I just asked him, I was like, yo, did you ever DJ? And he was like, nah, man. And I was like, what did you do? Why did
like
you buy all these?
Like it's like he's like dismissive.
Yeah, I'm like, why
would I even think of that?
Why did you buy all these records? Why did you invest so much money into equipment? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a madness. Like this DJ music thing is kind of like, it's insane. It's like artistry, you know?
Well,
like,
I mean, that's why I try my best to talk about it in terms of like utilizing like labor forward language because it is a job.
Yeah.
Like artist as a title, like that is also a job.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like the things that those things have in common, creativity, that is a thing that is not locked to this, you know, this economic environment that we're within.
Yeah, it's like you investing energy into something. Investing energy, time, investing money. Like I used to walk the streets of him in London, like just spending time with him, and like he's literally like an old man. I'm walking at my New York pace. He's walking at his like London pace, which is like a little bit slower, so I have to like slow down. And he moves so fast when he walks past like a vintage shop that has records on the street, and you'll just see him like brush through like a 99-cent bin, and I'm kind of like what? Like you're looking here for records? He's like, yeah, they have the best things. Like you'll never know. And I'm like, he's crazy for music.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's really beautiful in a sense. It's like very like inner childlike.
Wow. Well, I'd like to play a piece of music that has me kind of in a state of wonder in general. There's a group from the UK called SND, featuring Mark Fell and Matt Steele, some computer musicians who utilize club music itself as kind of a material for their own music. This is a very short composition from a record that I really like called Make S&D Cassette. And I've kind of referred to it in some of my more recent work with 3 Things Minus One, for example, where like each one of the track titles is just like a number.
Yeah, I see that. It's literally track number 9.
Yeah, yeah, and so the thing that I really got from their work is that the sounds themselves are materials. They are like, even though they don't kind of possess physical form in a way that we would associate with, you know, a wood table or a CDJ or the microphones that we're talking on. Like, they kind of have these textures. They still like relate to things within our body that are concrete, that we can kind of chew on to an extent.
Okay.
And they really like sit in some of these sounds. This is a very short composition. It's number 9 on Make S&D Cassette by S&D.
I'm excited to hear this. Let's
That was Make S&D Cassette by S&D, track number 9. And yeah, it's a very discreet kind of environment. You know, it's only a couple of minutes long. Some of their tracks are shorter. Some of them are much longer. But they have this very particular kind of tonal environment that they work with. It's restrained. It feels like it's going to go somewhere, but kind of doesn't. It is, it's looped, but it changes enough that it kind of becomes its own nonlinear kind of experience, you know, similar to this conversation, similar to what we were talking about before about like timeless music and things that have this quality that feels like it could be now, it could be from the future, it could be from the past.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm trying to hear more tracks like that, like out in spaces, honestly.
What's your motivation behind? I mean, I'm very biased. I do too. But what motivates that statement?
I feel like a lot of times when we go out, it's like the emphasis is on how can I move this crowd and make everyone go crazy, which is like a beautiful, magical, almost like God-like feeling in a sense. But sometimes I want to go out and just put on my hoodie and be at the bar and like vibe with like my friends and hear like tracks like that in the background that are like very much like a part of like the experience, a part like almost like creating, it's creating the environment in itself, but it doesn't take it over with such like intense like 4 on the floor, like high BPMs. It's something that's like almost background, like almost cinematic in a sense. And I really love to hear that when I'm out in my headphones. It's normally what I'm listening to be honest, when I'm moving around the city. Something like very cinematic, something not as party mode, but just kind of like vibe mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I feel like sometimes I and others like music theorists and stuff like that would call that dynamic range. I mean, it's kind of a very basic music theory thing, like quiet, like a, you know, things with quiet sounds as well as loud sounds, and there's like space in between the two, and sometimes things are entirely quiet and it's too quiet, and sometimes things are way too loud, like, and only loud, you know, and they have their own particular feeling that they kind of can garner.
Yeah.
Something I really like about a tune like this as well is that it makes your ears open up because there's not a lot going on, but what is going on is so, like, I can only have like other sensory descriptions of this. Like, it just tastes really good. Like, that pad is just like really, it's in a really nice place. It has like really good harmonics. It has like nice, you know, the structure of it is just like really nice. And then the percussive sounds are just like really delicate, but they're not like smacking you over the head like a big 909 kick drum or something. They're just like, they're kind of a bit more back. You know, you kind of had to work to get to the feeling that they're listening. I mean, you know, on first listening, you'd be like, this is like, Russell, you're just talking about something that's really boring. Like, you're over explaining some really boring stuff, you know, but it's like
those people aren't on that level. Yeah. Like,
I mean, I'm not even trying to set up a hierarchy like that necessarily, you know, it's just,
it's not even
it's
a
just more
hierarchy,
like this is something that, because I've had this music presented to me over the course of different years, different times, different places that I was in sonically and things that I privileged. And it didn't hit me, but for whatever reason, like maybe a couple years ago, I was listening to a certain streaming service that I will not promote, but I was like, oh yeah, like Mark Fell, he just came out with this book, like, and I like his computer music stuff, like, oh yeah, I know about this other project that he was a part of, like, let me actually dive in, and this was the first thing that came up, and it just, like, the whole thing, it just floored me, like, it just has such deep emotional content, it's referring to this particular time period. Like, a lot of Mark Fell's stuff is inspired by like mid-90s deep house specifically, and like the environments in which that stuff was happening. He was experiencing it in the UK as these kinds of sounds were breaking, but like most of his, like why he uses FM synthesis for most of his stuff, why he uses certain drum machines or sounds of drum machines rather, is because it invokes this like particular aesthetic time that is now kind of like out of time in its own way. I like stuff that has these, like, there are these, it's replete with cultural reference, you know, it doesn't, and not to make it sound more important, but because it is actually appreciative of that. Like Basic Channel is kind of like this as well, I think.
It kind of sounded very warm and intimate, but like big room, warm and intimate. Like I can kind of imagine like a scene for that particular track.
Yeah, it has like a lot of visual content in it. Like your imagination just kind of goes like off if you really kind of lay in it for a while.
Big room, blue lights, like dark hallways. It gives me a vibe, but everyone's like comfortable and like kind of chill in it. It gives me like a beautiful vibe. I really like that track. Wow.
What would you like to play next?
I was gonna play Sade, and I think I still am. Hang On to Your Love.
Oh yeah, please, a classic.
Thank
a
you.
Classic.
Thank you,
I will
Mom.
not. I can't say no. So, Chris, this Sade holds a particular position for you. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, off the mic, we were just talking about. Well, I was talking about Sade and like kind of what it means to me when I hear tracks like that, and not even like Sade gave me this, but like my mother played Sade on repeat, like cleaning the house, cooking, laundry, just like chilling in the house. It was like, so every time I hear it now, and I play it for myself a lot, it brings me to tears sometimes, and it just gives me like a real like homely vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, because like our families are getting older, like the older generations, you know, like
Yeah.
I think about this a lot, but like sometimes I think about my mother passing, and I'm like, if she did, Sade would kind of like almost like playing Sade in the house would almost like bring her close to me, or I would feel her in the room kind of vibe.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that like this, you know,
She's still alive. She's still alive.
Yeah, a cynical,
healthy.
more sciencey brain could be like, well, you have that association, and so of course you're gonna think like, oh, she's still alive. She's in, like, you know, it's a way that we comfort ourselves or cope or whatever. But I like really believe that stuff. Like, you know, like this stuff is fundamentally, this is energy. This is energy that's being like moved throughout time and space, like with some kind of constancy, and it resonates with you in a way that you're able to continue to carry with you, to an extent like someone's life force itself exists as much within them as it does you. We're made of the same things. We're just made of like atoms that are like constantly, you know, exchanging themselves or what have you. And and so like invoking that, like vibrating the very atoms of the air with these kinds of songs that you might associate with these people, like, yeah, it brings them back. Like the energy doesn't die, it just is transferred into something else, you know? And like a Love Supreme, for example, like, you know, a reason why Alice Coltrane would play a composition like that is like, that's a process of mourning, you know, that's something that is directly tied to her grief around like losing her partner, you know? Yet rather than kind of dwell in the darkness that may come with the earlier feelings of like such a loss, like it's kind of a transference of that energy into like a new state, you know, so that you're able to like really feel and like the person is able to continue to live on through the love that you show towards them.
Exactly. Have you ever listened to Alice Coltrane's interviews about John?
Not
passing?
about him specifically. No.
It's intense because she pretty much talks about that. Like, I guess like she was on like a certain wavelength or path, and like he helped her complete that in like a spiritual sense. So when she talks about John after his passing and like how it's affected her life, she's pretty much like he gave a new meaning to life to her, and it's just like you said, energy transferred. So with her kids, raising her kids after that, and like they weren't like depressed or like super like in a mourning state, but they were also just like, it's almost like he was still in the room in a way, still there, like raising, still there watching. Like if they make a joke, everyone's laughing, he's laughing too. It's like powerful, that energy, that music.
Yeah,
and,
I feel that. I hear that. You know, I've experienced a great deal of grief in my life in different kinds of ways, and there are times when those, like, you can palpably feel them with you. Like some of the homies, like you put the music on that they made, and they are materially there. You know? Or you might be sometimes if it's really fresh, like you might walk down the street and think that you see this person. You know, and it's somebody else, or there's not a person there or whatever. You know, it's an important process to find ways of translating and sharing in with other people. Like it is one of those kinds of, you know, so-called like universal experiences that we have, is like this kind of energy transference. I'm not sure how related this tune is, but someone else who's fairly spiritually oriented, that when I was talking to you about this show, I don't know why, but this song just really, it was just the download, you know, in my head of just like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe you've heard it.
I saw what you just clicked on.
It's Laraji, I Can Only Bliss Out for Days.
Yes, play it.
So I just got the digital with the record. So for this show specifically. So yeah, this is I Can Only Bliss Out for Days, Laraji.
As I look across this great creation and I reflect on the nature of its creator, I can only bliss out for days and days. As I look out over this beautiful world and I contemplate the origin of it all, I can only bliss out for days and days. As I take into account all the miracles that have happened through me, I can only do one thing, simply bliss out for days and days. And as I take into consideration all the inspiration that has been allowed to flow through me, what else could I be but blissed out for days and days and days? solar radiates his warmth down into my soul. Oh, I behold myself blissing out for days, days on end.
Yo, if you were a millennial in the 2000s, 2010s, you're definitely aware of the blog era of things, where you go into whatever blogspot.com and you're finding some gnarly music that's going to blow the hell out of your mind. This aesthetically kind of sits there because obviously when I was around, or when Laraji made this, like I was not around, you know, I was not even alive. But through this kind of loose social connection that we experienced through a form of mass communication, I was able to some extent share in that experience. Another thing that we're when talking about off mic is that something that we would love to hear and experience in the kinds of nightlife environments that we're accustomed is music like this. Music like SND, music like Alton Ellis, music that evokes feelings and connection aside from like party, fun time, escapist associated, disassociative associated, like
Yeah.
something that is like really grounded and present.
Yeah. Like we were saying, it's one of my favorite things to do during a set is like while you have everybody locked in to whatever dance track you're playing, look at them and be like, watch this, and throw something like that in and just watch the vibe change. Watch people who keep on dancing. Watch people who go to the bar and like talk to someone who like talk to that person they've been eyeing all night that's been eyeing them back. Like you're essentially like creating the vibe for the whole party. And like
It's something that I love about seeing Theo Parrish play.
Yeah,
you know, is that like
exactly.
he will go from, you know, it's no small feat to like I can't even fully translate what it is he does.
He's
you know,
just
because
doing it.
to
He's
the
just doing it.
because to like my ear, I would say, is fairly trained. I'm sure plenty of other fans of Theo's and contemporaries and stuff, their ears fairly trained. But the way this man plays is in some other zone that
Yeah.
I might not ever approach that.
Nah,
that
you're
place.
close. Nah,
You
you're
know, I might
close.
not
You're
ever
close.
I might not. And it's not something that I'm trying to achieve or accomplish though, because it's so locked to like him and his experience as well, you know. But like the last couple of sets I've seen him play, he'll be like banging it, like playing like Jack and House, banging it, and then just drop a dub track, just drop like Paul St. Hillier, like, you know, just let it ride.
Yeah.
You know, and the energy that does, like the way that energy moves through people when they're really present and locked in is just, it goes past the like typical peak time DJ hands in the air type thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's really powerful. And like, to be honest, like working in that nightlife industry, I've had the pleasure of meeting people like yourself, anyone who's big in this industry, anyone who's up and coming in the industry, but I've gotten to meet legends as well, like Theo. And I'll be honest, like Theo's like a madman. Like, I love it because like I can't tell what's going on, but there's something going on that like we're not tapped into yet. Like, it's literally something's playing, and I don't know what he's doing when he's going back here, but he's like, watch this, and like just throws something else on that completely like warps the dance floor and warps the crowd. And I feel like it's very in the moment, but at the same time, it's in the moment for him too, I think. Like,
He's like,
it's not planned. It's not planned. It's like,
regardless of how hard you think you're going in that room to a tune he is playing, he is going 20 times harder.
Yeah.
Because he has listened to that tune infinitesimally more times than you have.
yeah.
You know, and it becomes, to an extent, this stuff becomes the air that you breathe. It
Yeah.
becomes like a part of your fundamental being. And that's a way, and that's a reason why I'm like, I can't approach that because I don't share in that experience. Like some of these he's turned me on to some incredible music that means something to me, but I play it in that way that elicits that thing. Whatever. I have this general theory about something around the artists that I really like a great deal, that they're not super explicit about what it is they're doing or what it is that they don't even necessarily know what it is they're doing, but they are pointing in a direction.
Yeah.
You know? And the thing, they're trying to translate this experience that transcends language, that you can't really describe.
It's its own language.
You can
sometimes.
only just be like, oh, just over there. Just look over there. You know, just look over there. There's something there.
Yeah.
You know, and if I can do that for someone, or if I can even like just follow where their finger is going, like that experience in and of itself is something that motivates me and that interests me and that makes me curious about the experience of others as well. You know,
Trust me, you do that, and we didn't really talk
this
about.
doesn't have to be a Glaze Fest. This doesn't have to be Russell Butler
No,
Glaze Fest because it's my show.
I mean,
you know?
I don't do Glaze Fest. Period. It doesn't even matter. If I give you a compliment, it's organic. But like, you've done that when you played. I think you started off a set nowadays with like hip hop, and like a patron got upset at you for playing hip hop, and it's like, yo, I will mix something, and like hip hop will come in and match that beat, and just like womp. Like, I don't care what you feel. I'm playing the track. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's organic. It's like, you may have planned it, you may not have planned it, but it's just where we're going right now. You just flow with it. And sometimes, like, a lot of these music purists, they don't really like that because it takes it off course. It takes it off track. I'm not here to give you the perfect house or the perfect techno set.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'm just
like-
going to
like-
take you somewhere and just roll with it.
Life is fundamentally chaos. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And like human existence is trying to like consistently like make some kind of legibility within that chaos to varying degrees of conservatism. I happen to be not very conservative remotely.
Same.
So
Same.
as a result, like my practices around how I consume music and how I administer it to people within the context of DJing aren't like, I'm not going to think of things essentially as this one thing that has been told to me what it is, you know?
Yeah.
There's this really great book that I that once I'm done, I will try to let you borrow it or find a way to give it to you or whatever, called
Thank you.
Notes and Tones by Arthur Taylor, who's a jazz musician. And he's a jazz musician interviewing other jazz musicians. He interviews Nina Simone, he interviews Ornette Coleman, he interviews a lot of people you probably have never heard of, who were like players at the time, and most of the interviews are like late 60s, early 70s. And one of the things that is consistent about these conversations is that some of these guys, they were there from the beginning before it had a name, and the name was imposed onto it much later on by critics, by people who were recording executives, by people who were commodifying this form of culture.
Yeah, they like to put things in boxes and labels a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
and so they utilize the term begrudgingly. You know, they refer to it as so-called jazz, or what they call it, essentially. When to them, it's something else. You know, it's this other thing. It's this thing that someone's pointing to but can't fully articulate, but that's rooted in these discrete cultural environments in which people are like connecting and present with each other and like living their lives out with one another.
Yeah.
What's the next piece of music you would like to play?
Oh, I mean, I'm still decompressing from what you just said. Like, we just went somewhere, and me and Russell are on a vibe right now. But this is from a platform that I shall not name as well. DJ Gagola, Fluid Meditations. The name of the track, I think it doesn't even show it. What?
Is it Unfolding Practice? Is that it?
I feel like that's not the name. Maybe I messed it up. But like, this is the track though, so we're just
Okay,
gonna play it.
Cool. Let's let it ride.
Yeah.
I reconnect. I reconnect. I'm here to reconnect. My mind, my body, my mind, my body, my mind, soul, myself. I reconnect. I reconnect. I'm here to reconnect. I reconnect. I reconnect. I'm here to reconnect. I reconnect. I reconnect. I reconnect. I reconnect. My mind reconnect. My body. My mind reconnect. My body. My mind reconnect. My body. My soul reconnect. Myself. My mind reconnect. My body. My mind reconnect. My body. My mind reconnect. My body. My soul reconnect. Myself. My mind reconnect. My body. My mind reconnect. My body. My mind reconnect. My body. My soul reconnect. Myself. I'm here to reconnect. I reconnect. Myself. 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 I reconnect. My body. My soul. Reconnect. Myself.
Yo.
Tell me some things about this piece that we just listened to.
I honestly heard that randomly on that platform. I was just like scoping the tracks that were like big or blowing up at the moment, and the words itself, like my mind, my body, reconnecting my mind. I just same thing, like in a set that's like super hard, like let that track roll in and just watch people get into like the meditative state, the yoga state, like reconnecting. That's what this is all about.
It's really fun to watch people be impatient. You know?
Yeah.
It is like I don't like this thing of being like I don't want to be so obtuse that it's like aggressive. Like I don't like that. I don't like this kind of like you know, like record bro, I'm holier than thou kind of association with things. Like I don't like that. But I think that it's important. Like one of the things that's important to being yourself is recognizing the inability to please all people and accepting that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just not for everyone, you know, like
a lot of the time.
I made the mistake of like, don't do this, don't go here. But I made the mistake of going on the Berghain community Reddit because a friend of mine told me about it, and they like, you know, post like, oh, line update, like who's in the line, or like, you know, like unsolicited critiques of people's sets and stuff. And I was out of curiosity, you know, I read the comment section and was like, you know, as you would for like a YouTube or whatever, and was like, oh, you know, I just played on Sunday, like let me see if anybody said anything about the set. And somebody wrote a comment that was like addressed to me in a way that like presumes that I'm there all the time, even though I only just heard about this. But let's see.
I can honestly tell you.
I promise this is not me being petty. They said, "Much love, Russell, but this is not it."
Yo, I wish I can curse on this because like, yo, my man, go F yourself wherever you are, cause
no. Like, here's the point. This is the reason why I read this, because you know it's a place that has all of these associations with it, where it's supposed to be a certain way or whatever.
Yeah.
That are essentially arbitrary, you know, because it's only locked to. Not everybody can be there. Even the most dedicated person can't be there every single weekend since 2008 or since 2003 when Oscoot was a thing or whatever. Like not everybody is a direct authority as to like how certain nightclubs sound or how they should sound or whatever. You know, so like and I also, there's no timestamp on that thing. I don't know what part of the set they're talking about.
Yeah.
They could have been talking about a point in the set where I'm playing like high energy house music. They could have been talking about the opening of the set where I'm playing reggae, you know, where there's this association with this place where there are certain kinds of music that you can't play there and stuff. And there we can go into I won't go into the reasons on that. People can talk about that in their own time. But it's really, it's so interesting because I don't have this like, oh, like no, I don't care about that person. You know, I don't have that reaction to it. It's more like sick curiosity. You know, where I'm like, what elicited that reaction from you? Where you had enough presence of mind to go onto this app and let other people know who were not there that this is universally not it.
I mean, but it's not universally not it. It's just like their
No,
own.
but
It's
that-
their own perspective.
I'm trying to speak to like what their I'm being way more charitable than this person deserves. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of my kryptonite, is that I'm way too charitable to people.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that because a lot of the times, like, so when I travel abroad and also like living in America, and I hate to say this, no disrespect to Americans, I am American, but like it's the land of like unsolicited opinions. Like you're doing something and someone will pop up like, yo, I don't like this because X, Y, Z. And you're just like, yo, nobody asked you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, I am doing this for you, but I'm also doing this for myself. Like I'm giving what is coming from me. This has nothing to do with you, but you're here for it. Enjoy it or not. Leave or stay. You know what I'm saying? And like you can like be like, I don't like this track. You can walk away and come back and it might be like the most fire set. Like your opinion is like your opinion, and like that opinion probably reflected exactly what you said. It was like what was happening in that specific moment. And there could have been a million people who were like, yo, Russell set is crazy. They just didn't write about it. They didn't find the time to pull out their phone.
Yeah, and I'm
in
more
the bathroom, wherever they were.
I'm honestly gonna care more about not even the crowd reaction, because I'm not trying to garner a particular thing outside of a perhaps naive hope that people are having a good time at the very least. At the very least, I hope that people are not having a bad time. I would say that's more the priority that I'm thinking about, is that people are not having a bad time, and that's not locked to the music. That's more locked to the environment. I'm more thinking about have you drank enough water? Does it sound good out there?
Yeah.
Are the tracks hitting how they're supposed to hit based off of like the capability of the sound system? Do you need to sit down? Do you have enough room to dance? Am I playing too fast? And these are kinds of things that I don't need to go up to people and ask them. I can just look up. Look out into the crowd, and just be like, okay, like based off of my previous experience, like, how are people feeling? Because there are times when I can go extra off. I can go extra obtuse. I can go at any point in time, but I don't want to be contributing to the greater mass of people having a bad time. Yeah. And even if I was, they're going to tell me because they're going to leave.
Exactly.
And nobody left. So
Exactly. So my friend was like the one person that left, went into the bathroom, wrote their comment, went and got a drink, went to Panorama Bar upstairs
which
or
is
outside.
Which is fine.
That's cool. But like, honestly, like, we all have our opinions, and like, to be honest, I don't judge anyone for their opinions. You can tell me whatever you think about whatever track I played, about how I look. That's cool. It's your opinion. Keep it to yourself. If you feel like telling me like it's gonna change something, some people tell you things, I don't know, because they're looking out for you, and some people
try to tell you in real time, like they'll come up to you and stuff.
Yeah.
And like more often than not, like they don't turn around and see the good time that other people are having.
I've seen this happen, like,
because it's not theirs. Like it's like, well, it's not appealing to me, so it must not be good,
But like those people are like also looking for a reaction. They're like trying to connect. Everyone in this dance scene is like connecting or trying to connect. And sometimes people are connecting so much that they're having a great time in the moment. They're not talking. They're not talking to people. If they are talking, they're like, yo, this is great, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. And there's other people who I've seen like working in the club. There was this one gentleman a long time ago. He was on the dance floor. I think a DJ was playing outside of the techno realm. They go outside to the smoking section. They're like, they were French. No offense to anyone who's French, but they were like, "Oh, what is this? This is not techno. This is a techno club." And I'm like, I was just listening, but they were going off, and DJ was playing great music, but they were trying to like have their opinion and influence everyone around them. And it's like,
that's conservatism,
my friend. Nobody asked you.
That's being conservative.
People are rolling in the smoking section. Like, you're ruining leave. The exit's right there. Security will walk you to it. Get a glass of water.
Literally,
order your cab.
Right-wing behavior.
Exactly. Step outside. This is not your world, and it's cool. And like, there's places where I go where like a DJ plays something, and I'm like, but like, I'll stick around because I want to hear what's next, and what's next, and what's next, and what's next. Where's this DJ going? I'm sorry that happened to you, but like, to be honest,
I don't think it warrants
like,
an apology or anything like that. Like, I don't feel like legit. Like, I don't feel bad about it. I thought it's just like, it just tickles something in me that is just like, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's not a single experience that I've had in this that I can relate to that person's experience, where that would garner me like writing a Yelp review, essentially. Yeah. Like, I don't.
So time consuming. Like, what?
Yeah, and so one of my concerns with this show and the way that I play music or other things is like that sometimes that motivating factor, that expectation of something as opposed to this like, let me just experience.
Exactly.
And then I'll think about it afterwards, and then I'll like have my own experience of it. Maybe I'll bring that to my friends, but at the very least, it feels like a cry out in the darkness for like some kind of, it sounds lonely,
Exactly.
It sounds lonely.
And like the connection,
and I have that's where my compassion comes in, you know,
because you want someone to agree with you and be like, yeah, but then like, what if you're under 6 people who are like, yo, you're tripping, my friend, like that was great. Like, you are not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what happens when you put yourself out there and express something. It may be reciprocated. Someone may be like, yeah, of course, I feel the same way, and someone may be like, no, like, I don't agree. But like, that person, maybe that's what happened. Maybe they told a bunch of people and everyone was like, yo, you're tripping, and they got online and said, I want people to agree with me. Not it's not only limited to like America, like anyone.
Yeah, I
could do
only take
this.
it so far. As well, you know,
Also,
like
it's
I'm not like losing sleep. It's
Please
just like,
don't. Please
no,
don't.
no. And I more brought it up because it relates more directly to the thing that we're talking about in regard to like, you know, almost kind of like user feed. Like there isn't like a real time user feedback kind of a thing that you're getting from people outside of like them looking at you, you looking at them.
Yeah.
You know, if they can even see you, like in my most ideal, like nobody knows what the DJ booth is. You know, it's just like you just walk into this like great room and you're experiencing something together with a bunch
Jada
of people.
Lorraine is
Hey,
in the building. Coming up next.
But yeah, like it's just interesting to me. You know, how that influences people's experience of things. Do you have more music? Shall I play something?
Did I play the last thing? What
You
happened?
played the last thing.
Oh, then it's your turn. Absolutely.
So I would like to play another thing from this kind of like, I guess, blog era that I've talked about. That is a time outside of time, with Beverly Glenn Copeland, who has a new project coming out. This is not from it. This is from a project that likely most people know, which is Keyboard Fantasies. This song is called Slow Dance.
So that's Slow Dance by Beverly Glenn Copeland on Keyboard Fantasies. And we're coming to the end of the show, and Chris is going to play 2 more pieces for us. Thank you so much for coming and chatting and being a part of this thing developing, you know?
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for doing it and challenging yourself and challenging everyone else to like follow with, because this needs to happen more. The conversations with the artists, what the artist is actually listening to, what they're not playing for the crowd at some gig, they're getting paid XYZ. Like, what are you listening to? What are your thoughts? This is what I'd love to hear. As
Great.
much as I'd like to go to a club and like rave out, I also want to hear this as well. This is so beautiful.
Cool.
Thank you so much for having me for this.
Yeah. So what are the last 2 things?
The first track is actually a poem from a Jamaican artist called Muta Baruka called This Poem, and it was made a long time ago, but it also like still is reminiscent of like what we need to hear today. And the next track after that is these London-based artists called FYI Chris. The track is called AD, and it's a very special one, so like I'm not gonna get too much into that, but I'll just start off with this one.
Yeah, let's go.
This poem shall speak of the wretched sea that washed ships to these shores, of mothers crying for their young swallowed up by the sea. This poem shall say nothing new. This poem shall speak of time, time unlimited, time undefined. This poem shall call names, names like Lumumba, Kenyatta, Nkrumah, Hannibal, Akhenaton, Malcolm, Garvey, Haile Selassie. This poem is vexed about apartheid, racism, fascism, the Ku Klux Klan, riots in Brixton, Atlanta, Jim Jones. This poem is revolting against first world, second world, third world, division, man-made decision. This poem is like all the rest. This poem will not be amongst great literary works, will not be recited by poetry enthusiasts. It will not be quoted by politicians or men of religions. This poem is knives, bombs, guns, blood, fire, blazing for freedom. Yes, this poem is a drum. Ashanti, Ma, Igbo, Yoruba, Nyabingi warriors, Yohuro, Namibia, Yohuro Soweto, Yohuro Africa. This poem will not change things. This poem need to be changed. This poem is a rebirth of a people, a rising, awakening, understanding. This poem speaks, is speaking, have spoken. This poem shall continue even when poets have stopped writing. This poem shall survive, you, me. It shall linger in history, in your mind, in time, forever. This poem is time, only time will tell. This poem is still not written. This poem has no poet. This poem is just a part of the story. His story, her story, our story. The story is still untold. This poem is now ringing, talking, irritating, making you want to stop it. But this poem will not stop. This poem is long, cannot be short. This poem cannot be tamed, cannot be blamed. The story is still not told about this poem. This poem is old, new. This poem was copied from the Bible, your prayer book, Playboy magazines, the New York Times, Reader's Digest, the CIA files, the KGB files. This poem is no secret. This poem shall be called boring, stupid, senseless. This poem is watching you trying to make sense from this poem. This poem is messing up your brains, making you want to stop listening to this poem. But you shall not stop listening this poem. You need to know what will be said next in this poem. This poem shall disappoint you because this poem is to be continued in your mind.
optimistic. Let me use the term that you used. And of course, I often, borrow Antonio Gramsci's notion of pessimism of the intellect, but optimism of the will. Yes, we always have to believe that ultimately we will be able to change the world. And I think that today, as we try to generate powerful resistance movements against Islamophobia, to protect undocumented immigrants, to protect the rights of trans people, that we're drawing upon forces and we're drawing upon energies that have been created over decades. So now we're, in a sense, reaping the fruits of the work that people, activists like ourselves, just as we're creating the terrain for something that may happen 50 years from now. And oftentimes when I say this, people become depressed because they're saying, well, maybe I won't be around 50 years. But so what? What difference does that make? Capitalism forces us, and the neoliberal ideologies you were talking about compel us to measure the world in a very small way.